You hear the rain before you see it. A deep, pulsing roar like a freight train in the sky. The air changes thicker, hotter, heavier than it should be. And then it happens. The wind hits. Not a breeze, not a gust. A wall. A force that rips through rooftops like paper and bends palm trees into desperate bows. It happens fast to fast. One moment, it's just another monsoon season. The next, Sri Lanka is drowning in Cyclone DITWAH. And no one was ready. This wasn't a gentle warning. This wasn't something that built up slowly over days of media buzz and countdowns.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Or even the sheer speed. It's the scale. You can't look in any direction without seeing the aftermath: cars floating in what used to be streets, people clinging to trees, entire homes vanished beneath murky brown floods. It's chaos. Total, sprawling, inescapable chaos. The southwestern coastline, gone under. The capital, flooded. Entire rural villages in the highlands, obliterated by landslides that roared down the hillsides without mercy, dragging trees, rocks, and homes along with them. Imagine being in your house one moment, and the next it's gone. Not slowly, not dramatically, just gone, swept away like it was never there. This is what it looks like when nature doesn't knock first. And here's the kicker: this wasn't supposed to happen like this. Yes, cyclones happen. Yes, the monsoon season brings danger. But what we're seeing here isn't normal weather. This is something else. This is the climate crisis knocking on the front door and not waiting to be invited in. Cyclone DITWAH isn't just a storm. It's a symptom. It's the inevitable result of oceans that are too warm, skies that are too heavy with moisture, and a global system that's been warning us for decades. And now, those warnings have arrived in the form of submerged hospitals, desperate evacuations, and thousands of people displaced with nowhere to go. Let's talk numbers. Over 180,000 people are now in emergency shelters, if you can even call them that. These are overcrowded school halls, makeshift tents, and whatever buildings haven't been swallowed by floodwaters. Families arrived barefoot, soaked, with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Some came from rooftops where they waited hours or even days for someone to come. And who's helping them? Everyone. The military, the Coast Guard, local fishermen with wooden boats turned rescue vessels, helicopters ferrying supplies through lightning and torrential rain. It's a beautiful, desperate display of humanity, but also a brutal reminder that we were not prepared. Hospitals, flooded. Bridges, collapsed. Supply chains, broken. People, stranded. You want to understand what a healthcare crisis looks like in a disaster? Picture this: ICU patients in a hospital with rising water, generators failing, ventilators going dark, doctors wading through waist-deep water, carrying oxygen tanks above their heads. Ambulances can't get through. Medical supplies are running out, and still more injured keep coming. It's apocalyptic. Colombo National Hospital, the largest in the country, is functioning at maybe 40% capacity of that. Triage zones are packed. Staff are sleeping in stairwells. Medics are making impossible choices. Who gets airlifted out? Who doesn't? And meanwhile, the power grid flickers and fails. And it's not just the cities. In the Central Highlands, where the rain has triggered one landslide after another, the damage is unspeakable. Hillsides that used to hold tea plantations are now just mud and broken buildings. Roads are gone. Entire families gone. There are places rescue teams still can't reach. And the ones they can, devastated. If DITWAH has done anything, it's peeled back the illusion of control. Sri Lanka, a country that has weathered its share of storms, is facing something it's never seen before. And the most haunting part, this might just be the beginning. Because Cyclone DITWAH didn't just drop a mountain of water and vanish. It rewrote the landscape. It shifted the rivers. It scarred the earth. And the scars on infrastructure, on ecosystems, on the human psyche, they won't heal quickly. Agriculture is devastated. Fields are drowned. Crops rotted. Livelihoods obliterated in a matter of hours. Food scarcity. That's not a what if. It's happening right now. Prices will spike. Distribution will slow. Aid won't reach everyone. And what about the long term? The real cost of DITWAH won't just be counted in dollars. It'll be measured in the rebuilding of lives. It'll be the months of displacement, the years of recovery, the trauma passed down to children who watched their homes disappear beneath the water. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't an isolated disaster. This is part of a pattern. The storms are getting stronger.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Publicly is that we're not building for this future. Roads weren't built for this much water. Hospitals weren't designed to operate underwater. Villages weren't meant to survive entire hills falling on them. And worst of all, we knew this was coming. The science was clear. The models were clear. The warnings were clear. But what did we do? We delayed. We denied. We hoped the next generation would figure it out. And now, that generation is here. They're waist deep in floodwater, pulling neighbors onto rooftops. They're watching their schools turn into refugee centers. They're the ones who will grow up remembering not just the storm but how we weren't ready for it. But let's be real. Amid the devastation, there's also resilience. There are stories coming out of Sri Lanka that will break your heart and rebuild it in the same breath. Children carrying younger siblings through chest-high water. Teachers turning classrooms into shelters. Villagers forming human chains to rescue trapped neighbors. People show up, every time. Even when systems fail, communities rise. But it's not fair to ask them to do this alone. Sri Lanka is receiving aid ships from India, supply planes from Malaysia, help from UN teams, but the logistics are insane. The main ports are flooded. Airports are backed up. Roads are impassable. Relief trucks are stuck in traffic jams caused by collapsed bridges. And while every bit of aid helps, the truth is, international help comes after. It's the last resort. What Sri Lanka and every vulnerable country needs is to be stronger before the storm hits. Stronger buildings, better systems, early warning tech, disaster-proof hospitals, local leadership trained and resourced to lead. Because if climate change is the new normal, then so is disaster resilience. And if Cyclone DITWAH teaches us anything, it's that waiting is no longer an option. Rebuilding isn't enough. We need to reimagine. Not just putting the same houses back in the same flood zones. Not just restoring what was broken but transforming it. Turning this pain into something that protects the next generation. That's how we honor the lives lost, not by mourning them quietly, but by changing everything that made their loss possible. This isn't a sad story. It's a wake-up call. Because nature just reminded us how small we are and how much we have to do. So yes, Sri Lanka is in chaos. The damage is vast. The loss is real. But from that chaos can come clarity. And from that clarity, action. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now. Because the next DITWAH, it's already forming. And when it hits, when the next storm barrels in with wine sharp as knives and skies black as ink, will we still be caught holding sandbags, hoping duct tape and prayers are enough to keep entire countries from collapsing? Or will we finally get it? Because this isn't fiction anymore. It's not some theoretical climate scenario buried in a report. It's not a movie with CGI floods and heroic rescues. This is real. Right now. Streets turned to rivers. Mountains turned to rubble. Schools turned into morgues. And for thousands of Sri Lankans, home is now just a memory floating downstream. And still, amidst the wreckage, we ask the same tired questions. How did this happen? Why didn't we act sooner? What are we supposed to do now? Let's start here. We stop pretending like this is a freak event. We stop treating each disaster as a surprise. Because DITWAH isn't a one-off. It's part of a pattern. A rhythm. A rising heartbeat of a planet that's overheating, overstrained, and frankly, over us ignoring the warnings. The ocean doesn't lie. The atmosphere doesn't forget. And storms like DITWAH, they're how the earth screams. It's easy to get caught in the images, the rooftops barely peeking above the waterline, the aerial shots of districts turned to lakes, the drone footage of collapsed bridges like broken ribs through the landscape. But what the images can't capture is the human story. The grandmother who refused to leave because she thought the rain would stop. The mother who swam across flooded streets with 2 kids strapped to her back. The rescue worker who hasn't slept in 40 hours and is still pulling bodies from debris. And the quiet moments, too. The ones you never see on the news. Like the teenager who lit candles in a shelter while the power was out because the children were crying and someone had to make it feel less terrifying. Or the monk who opened his temple to refugees and made rice for 100 people with only half a bag of grain and sheer willpower. That's what resilience looks like. Not some polished campaign or hollow slogan. It's real people doing impossible things in unthinkable conditions because survival is the only option. But survival isn't enough anymore. We need to go from surviving storms to outsmarting them. From reacting to disasters to preparing for them. From mourning devastation to preventing it in the first place. Because let's be clear, there's no going back after DITWAH. Not for Sri Lanka. Not for any of us. The storm didn't just destroy buildings, it exposed cracks in everything we thought was solid. Cracks in infrastructure, cracks in governance, cracks in how we think about safety, stability, and the illusion that nature will always give us time to prepare. Spoiler alert, it won't. You can't negotiate with 150 kilometers per hour winds. You can't out-argue a river that's decided it no longer fits in its banks. You can't plead with a mountain not to fall when the rain won't stop. What you can do is adapt. Raise your buildings. Rethink your cities. Elevate your people not just physically, but politically with education, access, and the power to lead local responses. Because resilience isn't just sandbags and warning sirens. It's mental. It's communal. It's about how fast you can move when the water comes, how informed your citizens are, how connected your systems are, and how much you believe in the science before it becomes a headline. This is where climate change stops being an environmental issue and becomes what it truly is: a global survival issue, an infrastructure issue, an economic issue, a human rights issue. Every flood is a referendum on what we chose not to change. And DITWAH's results, devastating. But if you're looking for hope, if you're digging through the rubble trying to find something solid to stand on, it's this. The story doesn't end here. Yes, Sri Lanka is hurting. The scars will last. But pain is also a catalyst. And if we're paying attention, DITWAH just handed us a blueprint written in wind and water. Here's what it says. Build cities that float instead of crumble. Design hospitals that run when the grid fails. Create emergency plans before emergencies happen. Plant trees where hillsides are barren and brittle. Teach climate survival like it's basic math. Fund early warning systems like your life depends on it, because it does. And most of all, listen. Listen to the villagers who've lived through floods before. Listen to the scientists who've been screaming into the void for decades. Listen to the earth not just when it breaks, but before. Because there's a moment, right before a storm hits, when the air goes still. The birds vanish. The world holds its breath. That moment is now. This is our stillness, our breath before the next storm, the eye of the cyclone between disaster and action. We don't have the luxury of shock anymore. We don't get to act surprised. The data is here. The patterns are obvious. The water is rising. So the question isn't if there will be another DITWAH. It's whether we'll be ready. Sri Lanka will rebuild. That much is certain. They always do. The spirit of the island, its people, its culture, its fierce, impossible hope, it doesn't drown. It adapts. But rebuilding isn't a return to normal. It's a chance to redefine normal. A chance to say, never again like this. And the rest of us, we're not off the hook. If you're watching this from a distance, safe and dry, it's not just empathy that's required. It's accountability. Because climate doesn't respect borders. Tomorrow, this could be your neighborhood, your school, your hospital, your child on a rooftop waiting for rescue. So don't wait until it is. Start preparing. Start learning. Start demanding action from those in charge. The age of passive climate anxiety is over. The age of informed, relentless adaptation begins now. Sri Lanka's floodwaters will recede. The media coverage will fade. But if DITWAH did its job, if this storm means anything, it's that we wake up before the next one does it for us. So let the rain be the teacher. Let the wind be the warning. Let the damage be the blueprint. And let the rebuilding start today. Because here's the thing. Rebuilding doesn't just mean bricks and concrete. It doesn't mean patching up what was and hoping the next storm shows some mercy. Rebuilding, in the wake of a storm like DITWAH, has to be about something deeper, something stronger, something smarter. It has to be about rethinking everything, from how we build our homes to how we think about risk, from where we put hospitals to what we teach in classrooms. Because if the old systems worked, they wouldn't be underwater right now. Think about that. Entire districts submerged. Families broken apart not just by wind and water but by outdated plans, fragile infrastructure, and a system that waited too long to adapt. This is not about blame. It's about clarity. When nature shows you where the cracks are, you listen, or you repeat the tragedy. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most countries are still operating under the illusion of once-in-a-lifetime disasters. You know the phrase, we'll never see something like this again. Except we will. And we are. Every storm now seems to be unprecedented. Every flood, the worst in history. Every wildfire, record-breaking. At what point do we stop acting shocked? At what point do we realize the climate crisis is not knocking at the door? It kicked it in, made itself at home, and now it's rearranging the furniture. The tragedy of Cyclone DITWAH is that it had to happen to make this reality impossible to ignore. But the opportunity, the spark in the ashes, is that we can decide what comes next. We can choose resilience over reaction. We can choose preparation over panic. We can choose to stop rebuilding the same vulnerabilities over and over again. But let's be honest, that takes courage. It takes money. It takes political will. It takes imagining a future that's not just a shinier version of the past but something altogether different. Picture this, a Sri Lanka where early warning systems are so precise that people can evacuate hours days before disaster hits, where hospitals are built on elevated ground with independent power and water, where rivers are redirected through green infrastructure, absorbing excess water instead of turning neighborhoods into lakes, where flood zones are turned into parks, not apartment complexes, where storm drains aren't clogged because waste management actually works, where local communities are trained, resourced, and respected in disaster response because they know their land better than any outsider ever could. It sounds ambitious, sure, but the alternative. We already saw the alternative. And here's the part that might surprise you. Resilience isn't just about government policy or engineering. It starts in the small places, the overlooked corners, the decisions no one notices until it matters most. It starts when a teacher includes disaster education in a lesson plan. It starts when a neighborhood pools funds to clear a drainage canal before monsoon season. It starts when a mother teaches her child how to read a flood map. It starts when citizens demand more than empty promises and sandbags. That's the kind of rebuilding DITWAH demands. Not just concrete but consciousness. Because while the winds have died down, and the floodwaters will eventually recede, the memory of this storm, the trauma, the fear, the devastation will linger. In every soaked photograph, in every cracked foundation, in every parent still searching for their child. And yet, somehow, amidst all of this life goes on. The sun rises, babies are born, people sweep mud out of what used to be kitchens, laughing bitterly through the exhaustion. Boats return to the coast, markets reopen, students return to school even if their classrooms are missing half their walls. That's the magic of humanity, isn't it? We persist. Even when the earth tries to swallow us whole. Even when the sky turns against us. Even when every system around us fails. We still show up. We still rebuild. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.